Alice walked up to the little miracle station and got inside it. She always made a habit of going into it whenever she needed a moment to herself. She let out a contented sigh as she sat down and started to relax. She often made most of the free time she had whenever she was not with Bendy or looking for any humans. After a while of relaxing, she suddenly had an idea. Feeling around the station, she found a roll of tape as well as a bunch of ropes. Setting the tape beside her, she took the rope and got to work. She tied the rope round her waist, making sure to leave enough length on the rope dangling in front of her for the next step. Taking some more rope, she started tying her legs together. One rope went above and below her knees, while another went around both of her ankles. Taking the rope dangling from the rope belt she made, she stood up, ran the rope in between her legs, and tied the end of it to the other side of the rope belt when she did, making a crotch rope in the process. She let out a soft moan from the feeling as she sat down, thankful that the dress she was wearing had a shorter skirt than most of the other dresses she wore. Picking up the roll of tape, she ripped off a piece and placed it over her lips, smoothing it out when she did so. She said, testing it to see if it was effective. Smiling a bit under the tape, she set the roll of tape down and picked up another piece of rope, tying 2 loops big enough for her wrists. She moved it behind her back and tied it around the belt part of the crotch tape. She then put her hands through the loops and pulled, making the loops tight but not too tight. Now that she was completely helpless, Alice smiled to herself as she moved her hands a bit in order to test the restraints. She let out a moan from the crotch rope, rubbing against her sensitive areas as a result, so she put her hands back to her original position. She then started to struggle against her bindings, pleasuring herself for moving her bound wrists every now and then. In the moment, she closed her eyes and let out a soft whimper whenever she felt the need to. As she enjoyed herself, she did not notice that a certain devil was enjoying the show. The sound of the door to the station first opening and then closing did not even reach her ears due to her enjoying her struggles. It was not until she suddenly felt someone suddenly pull at the crotch rope that she was made aware that she had a watcher. She opened her eyes to see Bendy staring at her with a knowing smirk. "So, this is where you always run off to?" he asked, a hint of seduction in his tone. "So that you can have a little alone time with old Rosie?" Alice frantically shook her head as she attempted to get away from him. However, that only resulted in another show for Bendy. The devil only moved towards her and used one arm to hold her restrained body against his. Using his free hand, he carefully removed the tape from her lips, disposing of the small piece when he did. "How long have you—" Alice asked. "Long enough," Bendy answered before he kissed her on the lips. Alice was surprised at first, but she returned the kiss in earnest. After a while, they broke off the kiss for air. Alice panted as she looked at Bendy, noting a scheming look on his face. "Bendy?" she asked. "I think I should do something about this," he said as he started to unzip her dress. Alice blinked in surprise as he did so. After a bit of doing as well as untying her hands for a while, Bendy managed to remove Alice's dress, exposing her see-through bra and silk panties. Alice blushed at being exposed as Bendy retied her hands together. She looked up at him as he took something from another little spot in the miracle station they were in. "How did I miss that one?" she thought to herself as she eyed the item. It looked to be a black ball, just big enough to stuff in a smallish hole. "Little something I picked up once upon a time," Bendy explained as he knew Alice would ask. "I stashed it in here just in case I needed it. Didn't think you'd pick this particular spot, so I guess I got lucky. Oh well. Say ah." Alice blinked. "Ah? Why would I—" She was suddenly muffled when Bendy suddenly stuffed the ball into her mouth, feeling it just right. Before she could get a chance to spit it out, Bendy took the rolled tape and started to peel a bit from it. He then placed it over her lips and started wrapping the tape around her head, making sure to get her hair out of the way. After a while of wrapping, he ripped off the end and placed it on top of the tape gag. Alice let out soft whimpering as she began to struggle a bit. Bendy smirked as he picked up some rope and held Alice steady. "I got another idea for making you more sexy," he said with a seductive smirk as he got the ropes ready. Alice let out another whimper as Bendy started coiling the rope above and below her breasts, making sure to cross the rope at the front in an X. Once he eventually finished, he stepped back to admire his handiwork. As a result, not only were Alice's arms further pinned to her back, but her breasts were jutting out a bit, the sight of it being only enhanced by the see-through bra. Alice whimpered some more as she attempted to struggle once more. Bendy smirked from watching the display and moved his hands towards the crotch rope, using his other one to gently hold her still. He then tugged at the crotch rope, earning him a moan from his angel. His smirk widening, he continued pleasuring her this way, earning him more moans from the helpless angel as he did so. After a while of this, Bendy stopped tugging at the crotch rope, earning him a whine of complaint from Alice. "You're so cute," Bendy said as Alice looked at him with bleeding eyes. He then started massaging her still-covered breasts, earning him more several moans from the captive angel as her nipples hardened underneath the material. Alice could feel her body shiver from the desperating need for release. Soon she could not take it any more, and so she tried to get Bendy to release her by letting out some small whimpers. Bendy chuckled at that. "Begging, are we?" he asked. "How adorable. Do it again, and I might consider making you come." Alice resisted the urge to roll her eyes and looked at him with the biggest eyes she could have looked at him with. She then let out a whimpering cry, sounding like a little kitten desperate for attention. Bendy smirked and lightly kissed her on the nose. "All right, then," he said. "I'll give you what you want." With that, he untied the crotch rope from Alice and set the rope aside. Leaning down, he lightly gripped the hem of her panties and moved them until they reached her knees. Letting go, he then starts licking at her heart-shaped box. Alice's moans started up once more as he did so. Bendy smirked as he continued licking at her womanhood, using his finger to lightly stroke her clitoris. Alice's moans increased in volume and in quantity as he did so. After a while, Bendy picked up the pace, earning him more moans from his angel as he felt her body shiver underneath him. Eventually, she could not take it any more, and so she went and released with a cry as loud as she could make with the gag Bendy had made. Bendy lapped up all the juices pouring out of her pussy. Once that was done, he began to untie her legs. Alice not even bothering to struggle, holding onto her hips, he lifted her up and sat down with her sitting on his lap. Alice happened to look down to see that his member had hardened. Her blush returned to her cheeks as Bendy positions her over his shaft. "Ready?" Bendy asked, Alice nodding in response. He then lowered her onto his length, causing the two to moan from the sudden feeling. After waiting a bit, Bendy started thrusting into Alice's heart-shaped box as the angel wrapped her legs around him. Alice let out several muffled moans as that happened, with Bendy's own moans joining in the melody. After a while, he picked up the pace, increasing the number of Alice's moans as well as their volume. Every now and then, he'd smack her on the soft rump, earning him a cry of pained pleasure from his captive. Alice cried out after a while of the rigorous torture. "Me first, Alice," Bendy said seductively before picking up the pace once more. Now going against a more inhuman pace, Alice let out more muffled cries of pleasure as she tried to refrain from climaxing before Bendy has his own. Eventually, he slammed into her before he went off inside her. His fluids began to fill her. As that happened, he leans his head in order to whisper in Alice's ear. "Come for me," he said seductively. Alice obeyed, and as she released, she let out a loud cry. Once he was sure that he was spent, Bendy removed himself from Alice's entrance and untied the rest of her bindings. Alice rubbed her wrists as the devil carefully but quickly removed the tape wrapping and took the ball out of her mouth soon afterwards. He then held her close to him as the two began to cuddle. "I love you," Alice said after a while. "I love you too, my little angel," Bendy said with a smile. The two then kissed each other before they resumed cuddling for the rest of the day.